Hook up the sound, we're ready to roll. The occasional podcast, HiFi for the soul. Diving deep into the rhythm and tone. Feel that frequency, it's all I want. Turn it on, the occasional podcast, right? Hear the buzz where the audio streams collide.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. You have reached us Season 11, Florida Audio Expo 2025, Flax 2025 in Tampa, Florida. And we are here. You have Marc and Brian on the podcast, live from Tampa. I'm like the hype guy. I gotta get pumped, dude. It's been a hell of a weekend. And we're here and we're listening to tunes. How are you doing, Marc? How you feeling?
Well, if you're the hype guy, then I'm gonna play the role of Chuck D.
So Marc and I,
you could be Flavor Flav, and I'm gonna be Chuck D, and that's how we're gonna do it from now on.
I'm wearing a giant clock. You guys can't see, but it's my new style. I hope you respect it. I wanted to kick this episode off with this crazy thing that happened. So, as you may or may not know, when you stay at the hotels, right, sometimes you get rooms that are like in between the demo rooms. If you stay there, there's not that many rooms. They have to maximize all the rooms, and every once in a while, you'll wake up in the morning and you'll find out someone's testing their stereo through the wall, and you'll hear it. So, the first morning, I actually wake up, and I'm on the 5th floor here, but I start hearing these frequency sweeps. And I'm like, man, someone must be banging it. But the frequency sweeps, they seem weird. I'm just hearing this, and I'm like, most frequency sweeps I know, they start low and go high, right? But this one was like really high, and I'm in the middle of like a dream, and I'm waking up to this sound, and then it dies off before it really gets to the low. I'm like, well, the bass isn't traveling through the wall. This seems the inverse of what it should be, right? I'm hearing the treble, and it's dropping off at the bass. I should be hearing the bass, and the treble should be like more muffled, right? If it's through a wall. And this whole time, I'm such an audio nerd. I'm thinking about all this stuff, and then I realized at the end of it, there's like a weird bird chirp, like a chirp chirp. I realized after a few sweeps, I hear a bird chirp chirp. Turns out it wasn't a sweep; it was actually a bird outside the window.
Oh no!
It goes chirp chirp.
That's funny.
All morning, I was like, "This is the audio nerd that I have become." I'm sitting here listening to birds and thinking it's audio stuff. So no, there's nobody coming through.
There are weird birds here. I
mean,
this is Florida. I live in a place where we're surrounded by birds and bird songs. And this morning I woke up the same thing. I said, those are weird birds that they got here in Florida, really.
And not the only animals outside. There's a couple of little lakes, and there is like the legend of there's a first for me, crocodile roaming the grounds. Someone said they saw it in the party. They parked their car, and there's an 8-foot alligator/crocodile. I don't know which one, and everybody keeps telling me there's a difference. I don't know the difference. I'm sure there is, but this guy is 8 feet long, and it's walking around, and I thought it was kind of a joke, but there's a photo, and then like walking out, so I've been going out there every day trying to find it, to video it. No luck so far. I tell someone this story today, and lo and behold, they're like, I saw one on the way here. Here's the photo they took.
Oh, wow.
So there is multiple gators on the property, and that is definitely a first for an audio show, even for the Florida one.
This episode of the Occasional Podcast is brought to you by AudioQuest. All AudioQuest products, from the company's most modest parts to its most ambitious works of art, are thoughtfully designed to deliver outstanding performance and exceptional value regardless of price. No matter how little or how much you invest, AudioQuest is made for you. Explore AudioQuest's award-winning cables, power products, and accessories at audioquest.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Expona 2025. America's largest high-fidelity audio show takes place April 11th, 12th, and 13th at the Schaumburg Convention Center near Chicago, Illinois. Plan a trip to the Windy City this spring and discover over 200 listening rooms of high-end audio equipment and explore the latest in headphone hi-fi and Expona's ear gear experience. New this year, get a look behind the show curtain on Expona's Audio Insider podcast. Get an exclusive sneak peek at Expona 2025, where leading manufacturers unveil their latest gear. share captivating stories, and give you a preview of what's in store. Don't miss out on the insider access to North America's biggest audio event of the year. Visit Xpona.com for details on where to listen or watch. Tickets are available now at Xpona.com. That's www.axpona.com.
The Florida Audio Show is actually one of my favorites because, of two unique things. February warmness, not too warm this time, but warm enough, so everybody gets to get some sunshine.
Cold at night, yeah.
And then it's not too big, not too small. It's almost like that for a reporter. It's like a Goldilocks version of an audio show and now we're in a new venue, and the venue has 5 levels, and there's 4, 3, 2, and 1 that have audio gear. So it's kind of laid out pretty good. You just kind of go right down, starting from the top. You can go through the stairwells, and you can. Mark, would you say that you can see it in like a single day, like pretty easy?
Probably, even though I'll admit that I thought it was bigger than I thought it was going to be. Last year I was doing my Fitbit, and Munich I was doing 20 to 25,000 steps a day, and then I get to the Florida show, and I was getting 4 to 6 a day, so everything was so concentrated. This one, it's only 4 floors, but they're very long floors, and there's a lot of rooms in them, so I was surprised when I dug into it that there were a lot more rooms than I thought there were going to be. So it's taken a little bit more time. But it's nice. It's a nice show. There's a lot of people here, a lot of exhibitors, a lot of interesting exhibitors.
Yeah, I've had a really great time. I think that the cross-section is good. Not a lot of headphone presence, but there's also a competing headphone show going on in New York this weekend, which is unfortunate for the Florida guys. So they kind of got the short end of the stick there. However, we have Moon Audio, had a ton of great stuff, including the new Meze Poet headphone and the 2 new Grado headphones on display. So thanks to Drew and his crew for doing what they do. That's a lot of rhymes, but you guys get the idea. They had all the new models here, and so it was really exciting to see that. And they had one, so we had one solid room with Moon Audio of headphone stuff. Aside from that, pretty slim pickings. So,
but I will tell you though, one of my biggest surprises at the show was that Margulis Audio. They have it was a prototype and still in prototype form, even though it looked nice and it was finished. Headphone amp / streamer that's actually kind of built to where it could be an integrated amp, except that it has a 0.5 watt per channel, but that's not going to stop some people from trying that. And with the matching headphones that they designed, and I sat there and listened. He said, I want you to hear my new... And I was like, this is really good. Send it to me. I'll review it. Okay. That was another secret, so if you have a chance, you should go and give it a listen.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there any other products that you heard that were like unusual or new to you that you had seen at a show that really impressed you?
Well, I'll tell you something. One of the biggest thrills was the opposite of that, where I've always loved Lin turntables, Lin LP12, and the only time I ever see them at shows is in Munich. Lin has a room, but it's always a big, noisy room. They have every turntable they make, but this time it was Front Row. Front Row is a dealership, and they specialize in Lin. And usually when you go into a Lin room, it's all the amps and the streamers and everything. It's not the turntable, but they had the Lin LP12, the Climax, the top of the line one, the $33,800 one. And it was such a pleasure after all these years to sit down and listen to records being played on the top of the line LP12. And it was like, I just felt the whole time, I was like, God, I've missed this sound. It's a very specific sound. Not everybody loves it. But I remember when I was young, 1973 is when the Lin Sonic LP12 came out, and it was retailing for £360 in England. And now the top of the line one is $33,000.
Wow.
Sounds a lot different. It made me happy to hear it.
Yeah, I had a really good time bouncing around, listening to a lot of different rooms. I had a really good presence on the first floor. I kind of like it, and I know it's not for everybody, when there's a ton of really big rooms with big systems. I feel like there's just an entertainment factor to it that's wonderful, and you get to see them. Did you have a favorite pick out of the big rooms on the first floor?
I'm going to go with Cora. Cora is really doing some good things, especially with the little speakers. They're small. It's a two-way monitor, $8,000 a pair. And I walked into the room, and they have them sitting side by side with the big VRC $218,000 ones in the beautiful Sunset Fire finish. I walked in and I sat down. Val came up to me. He sat next to me and he said, "You know I'm playing the little ones, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I did, because it sounded like something you would do." But when I listened to it, these are amazing. They play so loud. They're so big. It's in a big room, a huge room, and the bass is energizing that room. And so he's got something really special with his new line of speakers, which are more affordable, but they're still amazing. Yeah. So that was probably my favorite on the low end.
And I just want to say, too, for that room, that has to be the most setups I've ever seen in a single booth space. So you walk in, on the left, there's an active setup. On the right, in the entryway, there is an inactive setup with some demos. You go in, there's like 3 other setups. So I would guess, if I can remember correctly, 5 total different systems in that room.
Yeah, because I didn't get to hear them all. I just went straight for the big room.
Yeah.
And then as I'm walking out and going down the hall, I said, "Oh, there's more."
Yeah. So they did it like they get the award for the most setups in a single room. I think the only other runner up to that is Focal, and we both got a private listening session. Thank you to Focal for hooking us up this morning with that special session, and we got a chance to hear their new Diva active
wireless
Utopia speakers. So it's just 2 speakers in a room. Mark, what did you think of the listening session?
All you need is, I love the quote that they gave us, that all you need is power and the internet.
Yeah.
and you're good to go, and you have music. And so over the years, I've always felt that wireless is intriguing, yet there's always a drop in the sound quality. And this is one of the first times that I sat and listened to the system and said to myself, I don't really notice a drop at all. This is a really good sounding system. And I'm really interested in it. I know that we got into the decor a little bit, the removable panels, which is kind of cool. Yeah. Well, the felt is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I would rather have something like a zebra wood, like you said.
I wasn't trying to give him too hard a time. I just felt like I heard a lot of rumblings about the felt. I think the felt's fine. It looks cool.
It does look cool.
But it would also be cool, honestly, to swap it out. Like, what if you got moved to a different room? You're like, whatever. But, yeah, I would do something fun with the wood if I could.
And the important thing is that, according to them, there is no acoustical differences between put a wood panel or if you put the felt panel. It's not going to change the sound. Yeah. And they said they did this to match with decor. So if you have these and then you move to a different house and it doesn't work, you can get new panels.
Yeah. I think they had a really good sound. They had a really crisp, defined sound, and he ran us through their like room correction DSP, which I found really interesting because a lot of my experience with it is these mics, and it's kind of like problematic at times. And I'll be honest with you, when the old AV receivers, those mic setups never worked for me. It always did weird stuff. This one is done actually by ear, no mic. And it's a very simple thing. It plays a series of tones that gives you left to right, then a series of tones for basically like a frequency response tuned in relationship to the previous note. So like do, 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 boo, 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 boo. And it makes its way down. And I thought it was clever. And he turned it on and off. And it was definitely, I felt, did a great job of taking care of the bass. It was very bloated and boomy, not from the speaker, but from the room. And after the tuning, it felt locked in. So I'm not a huge DSP guy, but I liked what it was doing in that situation.
Yeah, the same thing. Where my main takeaway from that was with the DSP, it sounded great. When you got rid of the DSP correction, it flattened out. Mm-hmm. The sound became flat. It was more two-dimensional, didn't have the soundstage depth. You said about the bass. The bass it stood out more with the DSP, whereas everything just kind of got mixed up, homogenous, so maybe. I've dealt with DSP a few times, and generally it's just a matter of you turn it on and go, okay, everything's set, but you don't really get that demo before and after like they provided to us, and it was illuminating. Mm-hmm.
And then they did have a couple of products that from their Unity CE Unity line, mm-hmm. and that were like really compact, Class D, all in one unit, really.
$1,500
yeah,
too.
$1,500.
I couldn't believe that.
With speaker taps on the back and a very small, tight package. And I was like, dude. And I use the app every day. So I use their app. I have a Unity amplifier. It's a darn good app, and it works, and it plays fun. And that thing just uses the exact same app. And I was like, dude, awesome. Like, if you already have it or you're looking to expand, you can do a bunch of rooms Class D and wire it up for whatever you want. So that was really cool. This really impressed me with the price and the size and the fact that it's part of the Unity family that they already have going.
Well, one of the things they said about that, the Diva, is that it's, Name and Focal have been together for a long time. Right. This is the first time they've actually work together on a project, on a single project. So it's got, you know, the name interior, the name electronics inside the Focal speaker, and they're really proud of that. And I, you know, I think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, it's cool. Two brands I definitely like a lot.
I've said it a million times, but I'm a huge name guy. That's why I first connected with Wendy at Name, is because I'm a name guy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of theirs as well. They've been around for a while. They've been one of the classic Brit-Fi brands for a long time.
I was old school back in the 90s, and I was listening to Nate 2s and NAP 250s and stuff. So,
and you still have your reissue, right?
I have my name. I'm going to keep that name Nate 50, and I've been bugging them for a while to send me the streamer, because on the Nate 50, one of the inputs is marked streamer. It's just a regular input. It's just a regular line input, but for some reason they put streamer because they want to encourage people to get one of the named streamers, which is very suitable. So I'm probably going to do that.
I like the vintage box that they have with that. It's really fun.
I know, I do too.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Vinyl. Dr. Vinyl is a Maryland-based audio retailer that offers a wide range of hand-selected analog products, including the fabulous Integrity HiFi True Glider Tone Arm. Schedule a doctor's appointment today by calling 844-378-4695 or visiting drvinyl.net. That's drvinyl.net. This episode of the Occasional Podcast is brought to you by Fernan Roby, a hi-fi designer, manufacturer, and dealer in Richmond, Virginia, where they have been producing heirloom-quality audio equipment and accessories since 2010. Each Fernan Roby piece is meticulously crafted for you to enjoy your favorite music with friends and family. Follow them at Fernan Roby on all social platforms for a behind-the-scenes look at their process, or visit fernandroby.com to see their craftsmanship for yourself.
And so I think maybe we should jump over to one of the biggest rooms in the show that I saw at the very end of the hallway. Clarisys had this giant, massive...
The atrium.
6
towers, 3 per side.
And I was first introduced to one of the smaller models at the San Francisco show last year, and I was really impressed with the smaller one. They look like a blue sailboat, and I thought that was cool. And it uses a unique technology. It's a flat panel technology, but these were giant. And they had, how many units were they?
There were 6. Yeah. So 3 per. So it was like woofers, mid ranges, and tweeters, all separated, and it was 9 feet tall. And so I've got a lot of good pictures of people walking up to it, and they all look like little dwarves next to these gigantic speakers. They're, 9 feet. It's going to limit the people that can put it in their homes. But on the other hand, it's like people who can afford something like this probably have high ceilings in their houses.
Exactly my thoughts. Yeah. Did you get a chance to give them a listen? What were your thoughts on this?
I thought it's one of the top sounds at the show. I mean, you walk into this room, you say, this better sound good, because it's not just the speakers, but the electronics behind it. It's a huge room. They took up a lot of space. And I said, well, you know what? It's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. And it was. It's really nice. It isn't like a big, loud system that blows you away. It was able to do the delicacy, because I love that with a big speaker, that they can go big when they need to, but can they play small-scale stuff and sound realistic? And these did that, so they were really strong. I like them a lot. I can't afford them, but I like them.
Yeah, that's like most of audio for me. I agree, and the really fun trick acoustically when they're that big is that the music sounds so big. With flat panel, too, it's like the mouth, the instruments, it's like... It's not like being at a concert. It's like standing in front of the mouth of a giant monster. The voice is so big.
And sometimes I don't like that about the big speakers. If they make things sound bigger than life, then that's not really being accurate. So that's why I love a big speaker that can sound intimate, because you still want to make it, sound like it's real. Yeah. And having a singer who's 10 feet tall with a 3 foot wide mouth doesn't really, it kind of ruins the illusion a little bit.
That's so fun. I never thought about it like that. But it definitely strikes me like that when I hear it. I'm like, this doesn't feel human. It's so large. Like, image is so large. Very interesting thought. I never thought of that. You hear that, guys? Just buy small speakers. You don't have to bother with big ones.
Buy two-way bookshelves like I do.
Mark loves. You guys know what to do. Two-way bookshelves integrated. That's how we go. That's how we roll. Any other favorites that you had on the main floor?
Lots of them. So YG Acoustics, and people are thinking they probably bought my soul or something because I'm on my third pair in a row of YG Acoustics, and I really dig them. And so they had their top-of-the-line XV3 with the special finish, and I forgot the exact price, but I think it was getting close to $500,000 for these speakers. 4 towers. They were powered by Western Electric amps. So Duncan of YG, he goes, we're running these, and the big YGs are power hungry. They like a lot of power. Right. So you wouldn't naturally go to a 300B for that. But in the system, there were a total of 34 Western Electric 300Bs running these things.
What?
And the result was this beautiful sound. I sat up in the front row, so it almost became near listening situation with these massive speakers, these big amps. But what happened was, and I've heard this before, and it's amazing, is that you hear beyond the speakers. The speakers are off to the side, but the whole soundstage is behind, filling up the rest of the room up to the back wall. And I heard this beautiful, wonderful, maybe one of the best sound stages I've ever heard. It was just flawless from end to end, top to bottom. It was gorgeous, and I walked out of that room thinking, that's pretty hard to beat. So that was one of my absolute favorites.
Wow, that's really pulling out the stops. 30, because for those who don't know, the Western Electric versions of those 300Bs tend to be very pricey. To also have 35 of them.
Well, it's Western Electric is manufacturing them new.
Yeah.
So I always say, because for instance, I'm reviewing the Vinny Rossi Brahma, which uses 2 Western Electric 300Bs in the preamp section, which is weird. But I always said, man, if I had something like the Vinny, if I owned it, I would go looking for some NOS. Some NOS 300Bs from Western Electric, which is probably, Scott has a pair. He keeps them in a safe. That tells you how much they are. But I believe a pair of 300Bs from Western Electric right now are $1,600 to $1,800. Yeah. Sounds like a lot, but a real NOS one is just like, you might as well, put a second mortgage on your house to get them, because they're almost priceless. For something that has a finite lifespan.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely has a finite lifespan. I did get a chance to go into the MLB UHA room, United Home Audio Reel to Reel, and they had a bit of a shipping snafu. As we talk about all the time on the show, there can be issues with shipping where speakers get damaged, and that was the case with MBL. But they turned it around. They found a local dealer, and they were able to resurrect the party once again. And I take that literally because they are the last standing soldiers at the audio show for almost every show, every night. They stay up spinning tracks on reel to reel, and they have digital streaming there. And they had my favorite speaker, actually, is not the flagship from them. It's the one they had there, the Rail Steiner, I don't remember, but it's about shoulder height, not the giant towers. And they sounded fantastic, and I love the staging there. And he played like Heart to Heart by Kenny Loggins, one of my partner's favorite songs. And I was like, Dad, she would love to be here. And it sounded great. And again, imaging the surround field for those 360-degree speakers, to me, uniquely sharp and also expansive. I don't know how they do it, how it feels focused, but still like it's coming from all angles. So that's one of my favorite little tricks, and always a good listen. And if you get that tonality from the reel to reel he has, it's quite a treat.
Speaking of that, so there's the Bayz. BAYZ, the speakers that they look kind of like a huge PVC plumbing pipe that curves around itself. And Grover Neville and Greg Neville first told me about these, and I always kind of walked past them because they kind of look strange. And they both said, "Oh no, they're so good." But one of the amazing things about them is that the soundstage remains mostly intact as you move around the room, better than because it's the 360-degree thing. And so I lucked out. By the time I got it, I was in there and listened and liked them. And they have a newer one, and it's smaller. I think the big one is like 130,000. I've heard it a couple times. These ones are closer to 60, I believe. Wow. But absolutely just stunning in the way that they're lifestyle speakers, in the way that you can have a whole bunch of people over and you can all listen and you can all enjoy great sound. But they're also very, very faithful to the original source. They're really good speakers.
Any other first floor favorites for you, or should we move up?
We can move up.
What's your next favorite one up the line as we're going your room by room now?
Okay, so Albedo is known as, they make cables. They make really good cables. They're made with pure silver conductors, which is, people are starting to discover if you keep the silver pure and you're not plating copper with it, it actually sounds exquisite. So Albedo's always had these amazing cables that sound great. And this year they had a speaker. And it just, I mean, they don't look too much out of the way. They're tower speakers. They have ceramic drivers. They were running it with a solenoid, all solenoid up and down the system. And I sat and listened to them, and they were so clear and transparent. And I felt like I heard everything going on. I thought that was really amazing. They're $82,000 a pair, which is, some of their cables are,
Right.
Right. So, but for $82,000, the sound from those speakers really stood out. And that was another favorite of mine, definitely.
Awesome. I like the deep dives. I like the surprises. I like the new.
Oh, yeah. It's like Albedo. I went in the Albedo room just because I wanted to hear the cables in the system. And there's these speakers in there. And I looked close and I go, oh, Albedo. And I was really pleased and happy with the sound. Okay, so Oneros is a new speaker brand. And Oneiros. And it turns out it's Jerry of Falcon Acoustics, who decided so they're not calling it a Falcon acoustic speaker, they're saying it's a side project, the Oneros project, and so he basically made this speaker that was his idea of a flagship of using the best of his ability to make the best speaker he could. They're expensive at $650,000 a pair, but they're beautiful, they're gorgeous. The drivers, they're not coated with graphene, they are made from graphene. And it was running with Audio Research, the biggest reference from them. I got to tell you, that's an amazing speaker. You're talking about a $650,000 speaker. It better be perfect, right?
Yeah.
And once in a while, you do hear those big, expensive speakers that really do sound perfect. But these were so well-rounded and pleasing across the board. They seem to do everything right. So I think it's going to be. I mean, I don't know who's going to buy them. The usual suspects, I suppose. But I think it's a great project that turned out really well.
I agree. I did get a chance to go up there with you to that room, and they were killing it, and they looked cool. I did get a chance to see PMC partnered with Advanced Paris.
Advanced Paris is so. I'll tell you. I was talking to Jacqueline Inglis, who's PR. I always see Advanced Paris in Munich, and it's crazy stuff. It's a French brand, obviously, but their stuff resembles like 70s receivers a bit.
Yeah.
It's really old-fashioned. And their prices of them are reasonable. Like, they have an integrated for $2,500.
Yeah.
They're finally getting to the U.S.
Yeah, I was going to say, they have a vintage vibe, and I was pleasantly surprised by the pricing. It's not the cheapest, but for what it has in there, there's a ton of stuff. They have the streamers and all this for just the price point's stacked a little weird, where if you get like a bunch of internal more goodies, it doesn't go up in price that much. But yeah, vintage looks, reasonable pricing, and it's a fun little thing. And he spun like a deep track, Anna Begins from the Counting Crows for me, that took me back to my college years. And I was like, dude, this is a deep track band. The Counting Crows isn't like a usual audiophile track, but the album Augustine and everything after I do have on vinyl. It's a pretty good album for that kind of a thing. And then he played a deep track off that. I was like, man, this guy is killing it. So I appreciate the demo from those guys and the fun. And right after that, he played some Tool. I'm like, Mark's not here, but I'll take it, dude. I'll take it.
I was actually asked by somebody today, what do you want to hear? I told them, whatever you want. And they said, so you're really sick of Tool by now, right? And I said, yeah, at audio shows, there's sometimes that everybody plays it to me and everybody plays it loud.
So that was a great little stop this morning I had. Did you have any other?
So we always talk about the three amigos, and that's Volti Audio speakers and Border Patrol amplifiers, Triode Wire Labs.
Yeah.
And so I missed half of them because they actually split to do two different rooms. And the reason they did that is because Gary Dews of Border Patrol also happens to be the U.S. distributor for Living Voice speakers from the UK. And so I think they just kind of split. There's Triode Wire Labs in both rooms. So Volti Audio debuted their new Vitoras, which is their flagship speaker. But he's been working on this for 4 years. They're $50,000. They're just gigantic horn speakers. They look beautiful. Volti speakers are fun. They're loud. They're party speakers, but they're better. They're better than that. But every time I listen to one of his new designs, they get more and more refined. And these new Vittoras, as huge as they are, very, very realistic and natural. So I think, and he's running it with Carry Audio, the old classic SLI-80, which is only a $5,000 integrated. But man, he was getting great sound from those. So I think the new Vittoras are going to be really something special. But then over on the other room, you've got Gary Dews doing these new Living Voice R80 speakers. I heard them in Munich. It was almost different because instead of it being the fun Volti sound, it was a beautiful, lush, romantic sound, which I really like. I mean, I like Living Voice speakers a lot, but it was spacing out and getting into it and everything. Really good speakers with his usual stuff. So I think both of them. I mean, I don't want to say has anything to do with them splitting up into two rooms, but it kind of gave you two sides of the sound possible with some of the same equipment. And I think they really the three amigos had a great showing in those two rooms.
Yeah. It would be wild if someone decided to do like one floor, okay, with all the same amp, but different speakers.
Oh, yeah.
And then one floor, all the same speaker with different amps.
That would be cool.
And then the third one, both the same speaker and amp, and just the source changed out.
Right, yeah.
Can you imagine doing like a turntable evaluation like that? Oh, narrow it down. How about just the cart?
Yes, because carts are hard to compare, especially like at a dealer. Yeah, because it's like, oh, I want to hear compare these two carters, and that's a pain in the ass. And any dealer's going to go, well, you better buy one then, because it's a lot of work. I got to sit there. So I mean, but that's a good reason why there's turntables with two tone arms.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you do that, you can do it easy.
Do you have a best sounds?
So far, it's the YG Acoustics with the Western Electric. The Oneros is outstanding. You know, all the Audio Group Denmarks, they're here usually, and they had 4 rooms, and every single one of them sounded good, even though they were at very, very different price levels.
Yeah.
Yet they all had the same signature big open sound. And I'll tell you, I think that if you're an audiophile, you're going to a show, you need to stop saying the phrase, is there a subwoofer in the room? Because the 3 smaller speakers, they all had tremendous bass and huge sound stages. And in each of the 3 rooms, I heard somebody ask about the subwoofer. It's like, there's no subwoofer. You can get deep bass with a 2-way if you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
No, I think that's it. It was really weird because, I remember yesterday, first day of the show, the first few rooms I went in, I just wasn't really feeling it. And then I had something to eat. And then I went back, and the next few rooms sounded great. So you should stay properly hydrated and properly fed when you're at audio shows, because if you get grumpy, everything sounds bad.
I agree. Your mood matters.
Yeah, so make sure you take a break, you feed yourself, or else you're just not going to be in the mood to listen.
Stay hydrated, important.
Stay hydrated.
All right, folks, that is it. We're going to wrap it up a little quick this time, because I think we got everything that really was worth mentioning.
Right.
We'll end on those words of wisdom. Stay hydrated, stay well fed, stay safe.
Take a break if you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go down and sit down on one of the big comfy couches in the lobby, and you'd be surprised at how better everything sounds. Sometimes these people come in here and they room to room to room to room to room, and after a while you get fatigued.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Mark, thank you so much for your help, brother. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man.
The Occasional Podcast is a production of the Part-Time Audiophile Network, which includes parttimeaudiophile.com, The Occasional Magazine, the PTA newsletter, and audiohead.com. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The Occasional Podcast is produced and hosted by Brian Hunter, executive produced by Scott Hall at PTA Productions. The Occasional Podcast and its original associated music is monitored, mixed, and mastered on the Focal Trio 6 BE studio monitors. AI songs produced by AUDIO.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Occasional Podcast on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Gators, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, the sound we're ready to roll. The occasional podcast, HiFi for the soul. Diving deep into the rhythm and tone. Feel that frequency, it's all I want. Turn it on, the occasional podcast, right? Hear the buzz when the audio streams collide. Tune into the wave, every story bold. Headphones on where the tales are told. It's a sonic journey, HiFi guide, broadening the horizons on this audio tide.